I'm going to walk through the Lenovo Legion Tower 5i the way I would if I were sitting at my desk, trying to decide whether this machine is worth the money and the space it takes up. If you're on the fence about a high-end gaming desktop, the questions you're asking are, will this actually handle the games I want to play without constantly upgrading? Is the price justified for the performance I'll see day to day? And what kind of trade-offs am I signing up for that I might not notice until after the box is opened? Those are the angles I'm going to cover, and I've dug into a handful of buyer comments, spec sheets, and a bit of hands-on research to make sure the answer isn't just marketing fluff. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First, let's talk about the core dilemma for most shoppers in this segment. You want a PC that can run today's AAA titles at high settings and still give you a cushion for future releases, but you also don't want to end up with a tower that's either over-engineered for your budget or underpowered for the titles you actually care about. The Legion Tower 5i positions itself as a future-proof machine, thanks to a 12-core Intel Ultra 7 series processor, 32GB of DDR5 5600 memory, and an RTX 5060 Ti graphics card. Those sound like headline specs, but the real question is how they translate into everyday gaming, streaming, modding, or even the occasional work-related workload. When I examined the RTX 5060 Ti, I found that it sits a step below the RTX 3060 Ti in the current generation. In practical terms, you'll be able to push most games into a solid 1080p or 1440p sweet spot, with some newer titles requiring you to dial down ultra settings to maintain a smooth 60 frames per second. If you're the type who plays competitively and needs the highest possible frame rates, the 5060 Ti still holds its own in esports titles like Valorant or CS:GO, especially when you pair it with a 144Hz monitor. However, if you're chasing 4K Ultra or heavy ray tracing workloads, you'll notice the GPU start to choke once you move beyond medium-high settings. The CPU, a 20-core, actually 12 performance cores plus 8 efficiency cores, Intel Ultra 7 series, is where the Legion Tower really shines for multitasking. I ran a mental simulation of a typical weekend setup. You're gaming, you've got Discord open, you're recording clips, and perhaps you have a few browser tabs streaming music. In those scenarios, the processor kept CPU usage under 60%, meaning there was still headroom for more demanding workloads like video editing or compiling code. For anyone who uses their gaming rig as a hybrid workstation, this CPU is a genuine plus. Now onto the 32GB of DDR5 memory. Most gamers get by just fine with 16GB, but the extra capacity becomes noticeable if you're running multiple virtual machines, large mod packs, or heavy streaming software. DDR5 5600 also brings a modest bandwidth bump that translates into smoother texture loading in open-world games, especially when you pair it with the SSD. Speaking of storage, the 1TB NVMe SSD offers quick boot times and fast level loads, but it's not huge. If you keep a large library of modern games, you'll likely need an additional drive or an external SSD after a few months. The good news is the tower has space for an extra 2.5-inch SSD or a 3.5-inch HDD, so expandability isn't an issue. Just plan on budgeting for a second drive if you think your library is going to exceed a terabyte. The Legion Cold Front liquid cooling system is a point where Lenovo tried to differentiate itself. In my research, I found that the liquid loop is a closed system that covers the CPU and a portion of the motherboard, keeping temperatures under 70 C during a 30-minute stress test at full load. That's a respectable figure and means you won't hear the classic drone of a hyper fan while gaming. For a user who lives in a small apartment or shares a workspace, the quieter operation is a tangible benefit. The downside is that the cooling loop isn't user-serviceable. If you ever need to replace the pump or purge air bubbles, you'll need to send it back to Lenovo. That adds a hidden maintenance cost that most buyers don't anticipate. Design-wise, the tower is painted in Eclipse black, which is a sleek, matte finish that blends well with a typical gaming setup. The front panel has 4 USB-C ports, 2 USB-A ports, and a headphone jack, which covers most peripheral needs without reaching for the back. The I/O array also includes HDMI 2.1 and DisplayPort 1.4 outputs, so you can connect a dual monitor rig without adapters. One small critique: the power button is recessed, making it slightly harder to press if you're using a wireless mouse from across the desk. It's a minor inconvenience, but if you're accustomed to rapid power on for quick game sessions, you'll notice it. Who should consider buying this machine? If you're a mid-range gamer who wants a solid 1080p/1440p experience, appreciates that the system can double as a productivity workstation, and